Welcome to another episode of the Progcast, where we discuss everything that Ryan and I use online to make money for our clients. Today, we're focusing in on Google SEM. This is the second time we've really gone in on SEM, but it's because we believe it is one of the first steps, most crucial ways to get your product, your business, your service, whatever it happens to be, in front of the right people looking for it. This is our first thing that we love to discuss with anybody we begin to work with. Before we pursue other avenues, the question is intent. Do you have customers who are intent-based, or are we showing up passively and they'll eventually be a purchaser? And the answer to that question dictates whether or not we begin to push SEM. And we're always hoping that we can, because it is beautiful. One of the best services that we provide at Scavo Media. So Ryan, tell us a little bit, first of all. Tell us about your background when it comes to Google SEM.
Yeah, so my background first started at SEM at Meredith Corporation. I was managing about $500,000 plus a month worth of ad dollars, doing ads for People Magazine on Google and Bing, basically running some paid ads for subscriptions for online and print. So I was really managing some big boy ad budgets and kind of in the weeds of search terms, bidding adjustments, and other optimizations.
Yeah, and with those experiences, we've been able to take that for large clients and small clients, use those same principles, because it doesn't matter how big of the company is, the top to bottom, these principles work across the board.
Yeah, and one thing I've really learned just from the clients that we currently work with, before we onboarded, it's pretty typical for someone just to set up Google Ads on their own as a business owner, not A, really know what's going on, or B, just doesn't have the time to keep up with it. And to be honest, Google's recommendations for small business owners and just anyone in general not familiar with SEM when setting up is not great advice. Google's out to make money. They're not looking out for the best interests of their advertisers. So that's where we come in and to help clients basically get the most bang for their buck and a high ROI.
So I want to just go down. I have several hundred questions to ask you about this, and we're just going to start with some of it's by subject, some of them are just random ones I threw in there, but I'm just going to dig in, and this isn't organized, it's just questions. Okay, so one of the main tools that you can use in Google SEM is negative keywords. So when your ads show up for searches, you can use a thing called negative keywords. Explain what a negative keyword is.
Yeah, so a negative keyword is something you can manually add into your campaigns, and this will make sure that your ads don't show up for certain searches or phrases. Very important when you're running broad match and phrase match keywords. There are a lot of terms out there that people waste money on that show up when they don't want their ads to show up for. And so adding negative keywords will make sure that your ads are only showing up for, certain queries or certain keywords that you're bidding on with high intent.
Now, are there different types of negative keywords, or is it infinite, really?
So there's different types of keyword match types. There's exact match, broad match, and phrase match. You can bid on each of those match types, but you can also put those match types in as negative keywords too. Maybe
an example would be if we're doing fencing, of like fence posts and a fence, but then fencing swords shows up in searches. That would be something you would want to do a negative keyword for, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of terms out there like, fencing. One I used to work on was called BAI. And there's actually a drink called BAI, but that was not the service that we were going after. So BAI drink would be a negative keyword. If you're running ads as a local business and you want to do, certain geographical areas near me, a good example of throwing in negative keywords would be, different cities that people might look up that you don't want to show up for. We would want to geographically target your location, but sometimes people could still search for cities in the query. So that's a good example, just throwing in cities that we don't necessarily want to show up for that a business might not serve.
Now, do we know these negative keywords right out the gate, or do we slowly start to realize? Do we learn through data? How do we interacting with these how do we determine these negative keywords?
Yeah, so when I like to start out my campaigns, I don't like to open the floodgates right away. I like to go exact match and phrase match keywords instead of just broad match like a lot of people do when they're first starting. The reason for that is, when you have phrase match, you have a lot of queries that'll come through that are somewhat intent but not way off the mark. And when you start seeing search terms that show up with these phrase match keywords, you can then dig through your search terms on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, depending on how much money you're spending in the campaign. And then within these search terms, you can kind of filter by cost and see which terms are not converting but are still costing you money. And then you want to throw those in as negative keywords.
Do these have a massive impact on your ad performance? How much do they affect the ad performance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when running Google Ads is not paying attention to search terms and not adding negative keywords. When I've audited some accounts that we've worked with potential clients in the past, people spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on search terms that aren't converting. And not throwing those in as negative keywords and doing their due diligence in an account like they should be.
And you would even negative. So the term might be in the realm of what we're looking for, but it's not converting compared to others. So we put a negative keyword on that because people who search that way don't convert, as where people who search this other way do convert, right?
Yeah, that, or you could just tighten up your keyword bidding. So instead of bidding on certain phrase match keywords that aren't converting, you just want to throw exact match instead.
Yep, perfect. What are some of the negatives and with negative keywords? Where are some things where that can be not positive?
Yeah, so there's also a thing where too many negative keywords to start, and that could limit your reach, right? So like if you're running phrase match or broad match even, and you have too many negative keywords, your ads will not show up for potentially searches that people might convert. Think long tail. You just want to start off with negative keywords first and not have too many to start. Unless you're in a certain industry where you can put together what's called a negative keyword list, and you can kind of export that across campaigns and set it up that way when you have new things running.
So when it comes to SEM, how important is keyword research?
Keyword research is critical in SEM. Without the critical data points of how many times a keyword is being searched, how competitive a keyword is to bid on, what is the estimate CPC or cost per click of a keyword, without those data points, it's very difficult to run an effective SEM campaign.
Now, do you have tools and techniques for effective keyword research?
Yeah, so the main one is kind of the Google AdWords Planner or Google Ads Planner, whatever it's called now. And that's just like a free tool that Google gives advertisers that'll give the baseline how many times a month a keyword is searched, what's the CPC, estimated cost per click of that keyword, and how competitive it is. But there are other premium tools available like Ahrefs and SEMrush, which we use Ahrefs as kind of a premium tool for our clients. And those also spit out CPC data, cost per click, how competitive keywords are. And the other benefit of keyword research is also long tail keyword opportunities. So when you're using keyword research tools, let's say, plumbers in Des Moines, there's a lot of long tail keywords that might come out of that. Best plumbers in Des Moines. Plumbers in the Des Moines area, plumbers in Grimes, plumbers in et cetera. So using keyword research tools gives you more of these long tail keyword opportunities that you can then bid on.
Gotcha. And so what are some tips for crafting an effective keyword strategy?
So tips for crafting an effective keyword strategy. What I tend to do, and I've seen works very well through years of experience, is I always start off very conservative through just exact match and phrase match keywords. I don't like to open the floodgates on broad match, which is what Google recommends for new advertisers because Google is a business and they like to make money through just pure broad match. But the reason for that is when you have exact match and also phrase match with high intent negative keywords, your traffic is going to be not only more quality, but it's going to be higher intent. Sure, you might not see the click volume and the website traffic that you want to see going this narrow. But at the end of the day, it's about ROI. It's about the quality of traffic. It's about how much intent your audience has when they're clicking your ad. Some people have the misconception of we just want to get as many clicks to the website as possible and just kind of boost our traffic and boost our numbers. But at the end of the day, if those website visitors aren't converting, you're really just throwing money out the door.
How do we use these tools when it comes to phrases? So your long tail keywords. How do you find these phrases that people search? Because you'll see Google searches start getting super long, and how important are those in this whole process?
Yeah, so phrase match is very important in this process. So, like I said, I like to start off conservative with just exact matches, some phrase match. But as you scale your campaigns and you start to throw more money in your campaigns, exact match keywords can only take you so far, especially if you're geo-targeting. You're going to be very limited to your exact match keyword base. So once you throw in phrase match, it's going to open up a lot more potential leads that you might not have thought would come through the door. Other potential searches that might convert that you thought had no idea would convert. And also it formulates a strategy to add more negative keywords like we discussed earlier. But at the end of the day, you want to utilize phrase match just in a very strategic way.
Can you define more specifically what long tail keywords are?
Yeah, long tail keyword is just essentially the longer tail of a base keyword. So I'll give you a few examples. So best plumbers would be a base keyword. A long tail keyword would be best plumbers for pipe cleaning. Best plumbers in Des Moines would be a long tail keyword. Any other keyword variation that's longer than the base keyword. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. How do you identify these high value long tail keywords? Because you'll see, especially in Href, you'll see some examples, but they end up not being. And Google will say the volume's too low even in order to use that long tail keyword. So how do you identify these?
Yeah. So step one would be through keyword research, but like you just said, we have to take that data with a grain of salt. But step two is also just to use the actual data that we would get from Google Ads. So, when you're bidding on phrase match or even sometimes broad match keywords and you start to see some long tail keywords that'll come through your search terms that hopefully convert, that is valuable data. Well, then once you start seeing long tail keywords that come through your phrase and broad match, you can then target those specific long tail keywords in an exact match format, and also control your bidding easier that way.
When it comes to identifying these long tail keywords, would you recommend crafting content around the long tail keywords?
Yeah, so you can make specific ads for each ad group, each campaign. Really, it depends on the ROI and the conversion rate of these long tail keywords. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to, draft completely new ad groups on, one long tail keyword. But if you have a couple long tail keywords that are converting extremely well, then yes, you want to formulate ad copy around those long tail keywords.
Would you say also should show up on the landing page and the creative on the websites as well?
Yeah. I mean, if you have any long tail keywords that are converting, you want to make that as prevalent as possible on your landing page.
Okay, so what about using local keywords to reach niche audiences? Or how about just using local keywords to begin with? So localizing near me or Des Moines or things like that. What are some tricks to go with that?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of local keywords. We use that for some clients right now. The nice part about that is, one, you should be geo-targeting before throwing in local keywords. Geo-targeting will ensure that your ads are only showing up in certain zip codes, cities, states, etc. But yes, you can throw in a near me and then geo-target through just Des Moines or geo-target through West Des Moines or whatever your location is. Yes, local keywords are very high intent, very good to have part of your strategy.
Well, help us understand a little bit the anatomy of a search engine results page, the SERPs. Explain to us a bit what all is going on there on that first page of Google.
Yeah, so a SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. These can differ, and it also depends on the device you're using. So a SERP on a desktop or a tablet is going to look a lot different than a SERP on a mobile device. Google is changing this now with different AI tools that they're using. But a standard SERP, in recent history has been 3 search ads on top followed by 6 to 8 organic search results. Sometimes depending on, what niche it is, for example, like best tennis shoes, you're going to see a lot of shopping ads paired with search ads and then some organic listings as well.
So what are some of the different factors in ranking that influence SERP results?
So one thing that, factors in a SERP result regarding SEM, several factors. So there's the quality score. The quality score in SEM is based on your ad quality, your landing page, and your keyword. So having a high quality score is going to impact where you show up. Also your bidding. It's pay to play, to be quite honest with you. So if you're bidding heavily on one keyword compared to someone else, that's going to have a greater opportunity for you to show up higher in the SERP from an SEM standpoint. From an SEO standpoint, there's a lot of ins and outs that go into showing up high in SERPs organically. One being on-page SEO, so whether it's through optimizing keywords in your title tags, meta descriptions, then you have backlinks, you have internal linking, you have image SEO. There's all sorts of facets at SEO that will dictate who shows up, 1 through 8 in a given SERP.
So with all that in mind, the Google SEM, will it help with your organic ranking?
Yes, and especially in competitive industries organically. SEM, especially in lead generation, e-commerce, and certain niches like that, is critical in a lot of niches. And I think it's a very overlooked strategy, in my opinion. I think once people hear that you have to pay to play in Google, and I'll just do SEO and I can try to get to the top without paying. The reality is in competitive SERPs, that's just not how it works, and that's where SEM comes in, and it's very pay to play.
How important is it to make sure your content is mobile friendly?
Extremely important. We live in a mobile first world right now, where a lot of times too, and get this, about 60 to 70% of users actually searching on mobile when they search in a given SERP, they don't even know what ads are. They're just clicking the first result. So if you look closely, you'll see there's a little ad on mobile devices when you scroll down in a given SERP on Google. But again, most people don't realize that, and they're just going to click the first result no matter what.
Go in and explain really thoroughly what phrase match is.
Yeah, so within Google Ads, there's 3 different match types. There's exact, phrase, and broad. More specifically on phrase match, you're bidding on a phrase. So anytime that phrase or someone searches that phrase in a given SERP, depending on quality score, how much you're bidding, etc., your ad will likely show up. An example of that would be if you're bidding on a phrase match keyword such as live TV services. Let's say someone searches for live TV services with sports, best live TV services in 2023. Your ad will likely show up because that's part of the phrase.
So what are some common mistakes people make when using phrase match?
Yeah, the biggest mistake people make when using phrase match is the lack of negative keywords. When you have no negative keywords and you're running phrase match, you're going to notice over time that you're throwing a lot of money away on unwanted searches. So for example, if I was running phrase match live TV services, one negative keyword I might want is best movie services, right? I don't want movie in there because I'm looking for live TV services. I want people to convert on live TV services. So having movie or VOD or some sort of keyword that is not relevant or high intent to what you're looking for. Not having a good negative keyword strategy in place.
So with phrase match now, compare and contrast it to broad match. What is broad match?
So broad match is kind of the Wild West. It's a free-for-all. So if I were to bid on broad match live TV, anywhere live TV that shows up in any given SERP, even terms that are similar to live TV, the ad would show up, which is not ideal. So, for example, broad match, someone might say, can I get live TV in my area? But if I don't want to show up for that search, that's kind of the downside of broad match. There is a one benefit of broad match, and that's just like a higher outreach. So if you're running campaigns on just brand awareness, then broad match might make a little more sense. Or if you have big ad budgets to throw at broad match, it might make a little more sense. But I know a lot of companies are very strategic on their ad dollars and their marketing spend. And I would not recommend using broad match. I would recommend phrase and exact.
Talk to us a little bit about exact match and when you would use exact match.
Yeah, I love exact match. Exact match is what it says. It's an exact match of a keyword. So if we're bidding on the keyword live TV services, exact match, we would only show up for live TV services. Now, there are close variations that Google runs. So for example, if we were bidding on live TV services exact match, we would probably show up for live TV service. That's just a close variant. But yes, it's the most highest intent of bidding of a keyword match type that you can get.
I would say that with exact match too, maybe you're in a niche that there isn't a high volume of search terms. The volume with the keywords just isn't very high in general across the board. I would rather not spend the money on pointlessness and just wait for queries that do match exactly the type of person you're wanting to show up in front of than waste money on things that when you have such a specific niche. We have one client in particular that their niche is so specific that it's just a waste of money if the phrase isn't basically perfect, because there are clients of ours where their customer, the searches for their product will be similar to searches for their customer. So people looking to get the services of their customer might end up at their webpage when they don't provide the services their customers provide. They provide the products for their customers. And so exact match in that circumstance is really helpful in weeding out a whole bunch of form submissions that are a waste of your money and their time, because they don't realize they're at the wrong company's website. They're at the distributor's website instead of the actual company that provides the services website. And that's where I think that Exact Match plays a huge role. It makes it easier to weed that out so we don't have the people, one, our clients wasting money, and two, potential customers wasting their time filling out forms or making phone calls to the wrong business.
And then one of the most old school strategies in the SEM playbook is called a SCAG, a single keyword ad group. It's debated whether SCAGs still work, don't work. I think it's niche dependent, almost like anything in marketing. But the benefit of SCAGs is that you can really control one keyword in one ad group. So the benefit of that is you can tailor your ad copy, right, for one exact match keyword. You can run different ad extensions for one exact match keyword. You can throw in, negative keywords if needed on close variants. You just have a lot more control when you're running a single keyword ad group. If you have, one or two exact match negative keywords that convert extremely well.
Go into what ad extensions, then explaining them.
Yeah, so ad extensions are kind of not necessarily a well-known tactic among small business owners and people running various SEM campaigns. I believe they're called assets now. Google just rebranded them. But ad extensions or assets essentially are additions you can add to a search campaign and give you more real estate on a SERP. So, for example, there's site link extensions or call-out extensions. If you're running a lead gen model or a lead gen campaign, there's call extensions, so you can input your phone number. So if someone searches on mobile and you have a call extension, they can just click your number and go right to the phone. So long story short, extensions really boost your real estate on a given SERP or search engine results page. And it's also just like an added bonus to a campaign that I think is very overlooked.
When you take up that real estate, people are more likely to look at it. Just like when you show up on the map, it's so much more useful because you're quickly to you just see more of it. But when these ad extensions, you can also highlight other services that are peripheral to the main thing they were looking for as well, correct?
Yep. And if you offer many services, there's called a structured snippet extension, where you can just list all your different services or a catalog or locations if you have multiple locations. It just makes things look prettier in a SERP and also, again, gives you more real estate, which is what we really want.
So talk a little bit about what Google SEM impressions are.
Yeah, so Google SEM impressions. An impression is just anyone that sees your ad but doesn't click. A click is obviously a click, and then click-through rate is clicks divided by impressions. So sometimes people look at impressions and think, oh, that's brand awareness, I'm doing well, I have a lot of impressions. But a lot of times actually impressions are just irrelevant if no one's clicking on your ad. If you have a low click-through rate, again, clicks divided by impressions, that means your ad copy is poor. People aren't resonating with your ad. It's not relevant. You're bidding on the wrong keywords. You have the wrong intent. And you want a high click-through rate. Average click-through rates are, again, niche dependent between probably 3 to 5%. But the higher the click-through rate, the more people resonate with your ads. Better click-through rate typically tends to lead to a better conversion rate, more leads, etc.
So impressions are useless.
I wouldn't say they're useless. It's probably the most basic starting data point that you could get.
So what value do they bring to this, to Google SEM?
Yeah, so there's this thing called impression share in Google SEM. An impression share and also ad position will tell you kind of what your average position is in a given SERP. So long story short, if you're getting a lot of impressions and you have a high impression share, that could be somewhat decent. The positive is you're showing up a lot when someone's searching. So in a given auction, you're beating your competitors if you have more impressions. But again, if those impressions aren't leading to clicks and those aren't leading to conversions, then at the end of the day, impressions don't really mean that much.
I personally like that impressions don't cost money. And I think that anytime you get free attention, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. The one thing I like is that while I might search something in my industry, I might search marketing, well, whoever's paying ad spend on that, they're going to show up even though I'm specifically looking for say I work for my company, I'm doing a search for my company's website real quick or something in that. And you have probably either a broad match or a phrase match going on in the same industry, I'm constantly getting reminded that company still exists, and it's costing me $0 to get that exposure, especially because they're not clicking, but one day they might, in the same way that impressions on Facebook, Instagram, other places, impressions are really extremely valuable, right?
Right.
I just love that we get free impressions with Google SEM, which I think is very convenient.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it is brand awareness, right? It's like, let's say I pull my phone out and say, restaurants near me or pizza near me, but I don't actually click on a site and I just see that. And then I go and I call them or I drive to a store. They didn't pay anything for that. So that's just good brand awareness.
And that does convert in the long run. Even though you might not have been the click that day, you are in the back of their mind in the future, especially if you're showing up constantly over and over again when you've got people having to do these types of searches all the time. Even in I've thought the benefit of even doing campaigns in peripheral searches. So if you're searching one category, but people who tend to buy in this category also buy in this peripheral category. Well, hey, nothing wrong with showing up in those searches because it's free, even though they're not going to click on you because it's one more touch to get in front of them.
Right.
Now, you can't really build an overall strategy based on that, but I think that there's a lot of value in that, and you don't have to pay for it. It's free.
Yep.
And free is always good. Okay, so we need to discuss click-through rates, what they are.
Yeah, so click-through rate, also known as CTR, is clicks divided by impressions. How are people resonating with your ad copy? Are people clicking through your ads? Are they not clicking through your ads? Click-through rate is kind of the quality measure of ad copy. One thing I've liked to tweak around in our campaigns is A/B testing of different ad copy. And click-through rate is the metric that I look at. Average click-through rates depends on niche and industry. 3 to 5% is what I first learned when I first started in my SEM journey. But I've seen click-through rates, above 10%. The more high intent and, narrowly targeted that you can get, whether it's a single keyword ad group or certain exact match keywords, and you can build strong ad copy around that, you can see click-through rates again above 10%.
What is a call ad?
Yeah, a call ad is where, like it says, you can create an ad just trying to get a phone call. So call ads are designed for mobile. I've seen a lot of success with call ads and certain lead generation campaigns that we've ran for clients. Long story short, if you're trying to get your potential customer on the phone, I would highly recommend using call ads.
Google encourages you to bid on more expensive keywords than necessary. Why?
Yeah, so a lot of times in a campaign, Google will have these auto-apply recommendation suggestions, and almost every time there's something about, hey, you should be bidding on this keyword, or you should change this to broad match. Google is going to always recommend broad match keywords and bidding on more keywords. The reason being is I believe their revenue off search ads is above 70% of their overall revenue from Google. So it makes a lot of sense when you're pushing customers to bid on phrase and broad match keywords that they don't necessarily need, but someone who's inexperienced with Google Ads might say, "Oh, Google's recommending I do this, so I better do it," right? When that's not always the case, and that's where a management company or someone managing your ads accounts comes in and says, "Hey, that's not a good keyword. These aren't good keyword opportunities. Google's just going to be shelling money out of you for no return."
I remember the first SEM campaign I ran was years ago, actually, and I just clicked. I was enjoying the fact that I was 100% optimized according to Google, but then as you learn what's going on here is like I'm optimized for words that have nothing to do with what I'm trying to sell. Why would I want that? And Google doesn't care because they just want your money, and they want you to spend more dollars on getting you the goal than you realize. Whether they're doing that on purpose or not, the way it's set up does end up causing that. And so we want as best as we can to avoid that situation.
Yeah, and always keep in the back of your head if you ever, if you run your own Google Ads account today, Google is, again, they're a publicly traded company. They're appeasing to shareholders. That's always the first topic of their mind. They don't care about, the mom and pop small business or any small business in general. They're just trying to squeeze as much money out of people as possible with their campaign recommendations.
So Google likes to spend more ad spend than you've told it to regularly. And how are they allowed to do that? Why? And that drives you nuts. So how do we stop this?
Yeah, I had to learn this the hard way. So you're talking daily budgets, I would assume. So if you set a daily budget at $50, what I've learned is Google will actually put that on a monthly basis. So 50 times 30 is what, $1,500 a month. So now Google will account for $1,500 a month. Instead of spending, hey, I want to spend $50 on that one day, Google might spend, $60 on that one day, but then tomorrow they might spend $40. A lot of it's dependent on search volume too and how many people are clicking your ads.
Really? And so they're thinking for you when they shouldn't. Is there a way to turn that off?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, it's annoying. One thing to take into consideration, too, is implementing additional ad strategies. So, I like using SEM as an initial draw, but once they hit that website, well, now we've got their pixel. We've got their little internet marker, depending on if they have a VPN going and whatnot. But we can still, to some degree, retarget people based on their arrival on the website, especially through Google, because most people are using Chrome. I mean, they use other things, but even while they're using the other platforms, they're still logged into their Google ID. So then with Google, we can then retarget them. Depending on certain industries, you cannot, but we can retarget them throughout the rest of the internet because they went to the website once through Google using Google Analytics. And that is very powerful. So that's how you can show up then in the affinity ads. You could show up on banners, all those things, having just gone to a web page one time. And it's very important. Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok has a pixel. We can be retargeting all using search as the initial funnel to the website and then retargeting everywhere else, so we follow them around the rest of the internet. And I find that absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and just a quick tip. I've been in many accounts when I've ran SEM audits, and you would be surprised with the amount of accounts that haven't linked their Google Analytics account to their Google Ads account. Linking your analytics account to your Google Ads account will not only be able to import the audiences that you have from analytics, and you can now bid using these audience as targeting options now for your ads. So just wanted to throw that out there as a quick tip that gets overlooked a lot.
Okay, this I find to be, how much should someone be spending on their initial SEM campaign?
Yeah, so very industry and niche dependent. But what I've found that works at a bare minimum is between $600 to $1,000 a month.
This is at the bottom.
At the bottom.
Very bottom. So whoever you are, no matter what your budget is, the bare minimum, $600 to $1,000 a month for us to see any sort of results.
Yes.
That's about $20 to $30 a day, right?
Yep. And the reason is if you're underfunding your campaign, which is I've seen in the past, I've had conversations with business owners about this, you will just not get not only your lack of data that will come through from search terms, but you will also typically get outbid in a bidding auction by competitors. And also you'll run out of budget extremely quickly. So, let's say you're bidding on something for $10 a day or $15 a day and hoping to get away with it. In certain industries that could be 3, 4, 5 clicks and you're done for the day.
And we've run into this before where people want to get into this. They want to see results, but they're not ready to show up with the money necessary to do that. And your options are, you have to spend money for exposure one way or another. This is the most efficient way that we know of. We prefer this over all other formats. But you have to pony up the bare minimum in order to see results. And we have seen situations where they're not ready to spend what we've recommended spending, and results are what I'm impressed by is we've still managed to get them results, but not to the volume that they would like, because we need to be hitting these bare minimums because there's so much competition out there.
Yeah, and one point I'll make on top of that, it's always important too, before you pull the trigger on a budget when you're running ads, to make sure that, one, you have conversion tracking set up. I can't tell you how many accounts I've audited that I've gone through and didn't have conversion tracking. They were either getting enough phone calls or enough form conversions where they didn't matter to them. They weren't tracking it because leads were coming through. So that's step one. Step two, if you're in a lead generation model, I would recommend maybe having email tracking set up. Maybe it's a pop-up. Maybe it's some sort of form. But the point is, you don't want that traffic just to leave and never come back. Right. You want to capture that traffic, whether it's not on the direct sale right there, but maybe sometime later down the funnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those emails, that data is so crucial for so many things that we can use on other platforms and other areas to retarget them in a plethora of ways. So the more info we can gather, the better.
Absolutely.
Landing pages. A Google SEM landing page? What do we want to do when we end up on a landing page after we've clicked an SEM link?
Yeah, so if we're running a lead gen campaign for a landing page, which is what some of our clients are right now.
Most of the business we do is lead gen. We do have some volume e-commerce purchasing online, higher volume stuff, which is fun too.
Yeah, so landing page in a lead gen model, you want to make it clear. You want your CTA or call to action to jump out. So when a user comes to your landing page, they know exactly what to do. Also, if you have a form that you're hoping, to get submitted by visitors, you want to keep it as simple as possible. Whether it's just name, email, you don't want to fill it with 10 different fields, right? You want, 2 to 3 fields. Someone clicks through, you get the lead, you follow up, whatever your business model is. So you want it simple, you want it, appealing to the eye, you want it mobile friendly, and you also just want to make the CTA very clear.
One thing too is from our perspective, in order to really properly track results too, I don't like having a person's ability to go anywhere other than the landing page. We don't want them jumping around to other parts of the website. We want no header, no footer to the rest of the website. We want them to be at one option, which is a phone call or a form submission, so that they can't pediddle around and forget what they were doing.
Yep, and that's
one goal with this landing page, and that's a conversion.
And that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So, for one of our clients, we actually run a landing page that's separate from the actual website. Mm-hmm. And our strategy behind that is what you just explained. We don't want people dwindling around on other pages of the website. There's no other click-through options. There's either you convert, you call, or you don't come back, right? We just want the quick lead, the quick form submission, the quick phone call. We don't want people venturing off and wasting time on other parts of the website that won't convert.
When this is a very intent-based search, so that's under the assumption that we've perfectly set up our keywords, our phrases, everything, so that the person coming to this landing page is getting exactly what they were looking for. And so the right amount of information for them to know, okay, next step. Another thing that we use is a service called Grasshopper. Now, I'm sure there's plenty other ones out there, but we use Grasshopper, and it's a phone 1-800 number service essentially that does call forwarding. And what's beautiful about the service, I can see every single phone number that comes in. Sometimes I can just Google search real quick the number that's called and find their website through the number. It's fantastic, and it's one of the best ways for us to be able to track how we're being successful for our clients. And you could purchase multiple numbers, and sometimes these numbers are trash, and you get a whole bunch of calls from the previous user of the number. But for the most part, it's a very effective way for us to track how successful we're being for our clients on these landing pages. And because if they click through to the landing page, well, Google is no longer tracking if that phone call came through, right? So Grasshopper is a really wonderful tool that we use on these landing pages.
Yeah, and it's similar to CallRail for those familiar with CallRail. Just a way to track phone calls and ensure that we're tracking conversions properly.
Talk a little bit more about what is good ad copy. What is a successful ad copy? How do you write good ad copy for SEM?
Yeah, so good ad copy is subjective, obviously. I've learned a lot writing ad copy for, our clients currently and just various ads throughout my years in SEM. But I would say two things I've learned. One, make sure your CTA is present. If your CTA is not present, you're going to get, probably some unwanted traffic. Depends on your keyword targeting and various nuances there. But if you don't have a CTA in your ad copy, the visitor might not be quick to buy, or they might not have a lot of intent right away. The other thing that I've seen works very well is having emotion in your ad copy. So something that's relating to the audience or relating to the visitor, something that's going to entice a click, right? Because that's the whole point of ad copy is when you're searching something and you see 3 to 4 ads in a given SERP or search engine results page, ad copy is what separates, your ad from the competition, right? Enticing people to get the click.
Yeah, that's good. And don't overthink it either. You only get 30 characters for some. There's different. It's limited space too, so you got to be very precise with the words. That's the part I struggle with. I use AI a lot to help me come up with as many ideas as I can to whittle down what might work.
Yeah, and also too, it's important to mention that Google actually just sunsetted their expanded text ads, where you could put 3 of your own headlines and 2 descriptions, display path, and a landing page URL. And now they have what are responsive search ads, or RSAs, where essentially you can plug in, I believe, 10 to 15 different headers, and you can plug in 4 descriptions. And what will happen is Google's machine will then optimize a combination of 3 headers, 2 descriptions over time, and just kind of A/B test along the way and spit out ads depending on what the keywords are that were searched, where people are located. It's more of like a machine learning based ad type, and it can convert really well.
What did you want to talk a little bit about DSA?
Yeah, so a DSA is a dynamic search ad. Dynamic search ads are when you're literally letting Google crawl your landing page and they're formulating ads for you. So it's a 100% hands-off ad. I wouldn't recommend this to start. It's good for testing purposes and just seeing what comes through. I prefer RSAs or responsive search ads to start because you have more control, or call ads if you want people on the phone and you're running a lead gen campaign. But DRAs are good for testing and they can work.
It's just another form of AI creeping into our lives, trying to make it easier. I personally think that, at least for now, and honestly, far into the future, AI is there to be an assistant. It's still not ever going to be able to, because even coming up with the search terms, Google likes to crawl through and suggest keywords. It gives you so many junk keywords. It's like, nope, I'm just gonna choose my own, and I like to go in with my own research and then expand from there. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's just another variation of that, where nice little useful tool, but I believe it's probably the best interest to utilize your own AI, assisting you in writing the copy, writing these things, and then running the 10 headlines and all that, and testing to see what works.
Yep. The more control you have to start, the better. And then once you start seeing a little success, we can start testing.
Google wants to. They always want to set it up to. They trick you into thinking you can just click a button and it works, but then that's why their optimization score is absolute junk.
Yep. Me and my old coworker used to joke, Google's a black box. Essentially, you know, with these dynamic search campaigns and these smart bidding and smart campaigns, you're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and just hoping, you're just relying on Google to figure stuff out for you, just with like blind trust. So anyone who really has been in the weeds of SEM, what I've come to find out is they don't like Google. And there's good reason for that. And like we just said, you know, talking about the DSAs versus RSAs, a lot of reasons why people don't like Google is they don't want Google to have control over their ad copy. They don't want Google to have control over their keywords. Because again, Google is out to make money. They're a business. They're publicly traded. They're there to appease shareholders. They're not looking out in the best interest for small businesses.
Exactly. With AI coming into the fold more and more, I think that we need to keep our hands on it at all times, because it doesn't know. I used AI to put these notes together. Literally all of these questions, I punched in some topics and then had Jasper write all these questions. I didn't write them. That's why it's not even in order. And it's a beautiful thing, but someone needs to go, because there's, even as I'm going, like, oh, that's irrelevant. Yeah. But then there's 60% of it's great though.
Yeah, and on that note, you know, we utilize AI in our campaigns mainly for ad copy ideas. Now, we don't just plug something in and use it as the Bible, but we plug in different ideas into AI tools. It's very good for ideation and brainstorming topics. You know, AI has some emotional stuff that they'll throw out for ad copy. Sometimes they have good keyword ideas. Sometimes they have even good campaign structure ideas that they're just scraping from the internet from various sources that I wouldn't have found. So AI is it's an assistant. It's a very good assistant to have when you're just kind of stuck and can't really think of a creative headline or description.
My preferred AI is actually Jasper, because ChatGPT is great because you can write in a specific command. Well, you can do that in Jasper too. Jasper has a command section where you can tell the AI, all right, here's what I want you to do. Here's the subject matter. Write me something, or figure this out for me, right? Very similar to ChatGPT, but Jasper also brings you a curated experience too. So it has a Facebook ads copy. It has a TikTok section,
blog
Google
posts,
headlines, where it will write where it's only 30 characters, or it's close to it at least, and then you can bring it down. So it curates it specifically for different ad types, different blogs, different types of copywriting. And I like that, because with ChatGPT or other ones, you have to kind of tell it a little bit more. Well, the curated experience speeds up my process a bit. Probably similar to the original search engines that were curated experiences versus Google, which was backlinking, right?
Yeah, and I like Jasper over ChatGPT. Like you just said, I think the UI is more friendly. ChatGPT, you have to prompt the machine up to get exact answers. And also the servers are very overloaded because ChatGPT is a free tool. You'll notice during work hours, if you ever go on it and you're using the free version, you probably won't be able to access it because there's millions and millions of people trying to do the exact same thing you are. Whereas Jasper is a premium tool. They have better servers. It's not overloaded. So yeah, just kind of a quick tidbit on Jasper.
Well, and so when ChatGPT first just started taking off, I had it write me, I don't know, like 5 or 6 blogs in like 30 minutes. It was pretty funny. Just threw these blogs together. Jasper also can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
It has a one-shot blog post. The quality is just as good as ChatGPT. I just don't have to wait because we're paying for this premium service, and that's the nice part. And it's curated. And their marketing is fantastic. They're constantly sending us emails. They're a very niche to the marketing industry, and I love that. It's where ChatGPT, all those other ones, they're also. That's the future of the internet.
Yeah,
that's a different thing in itself. Yeah.
On the topic of AI, I think an important point to bring up is when Microsoft formed this partnership with OpenAI and integrating ChatGPT into Bing search. I think this could change the landscape of both SEO and SEM. If you've ever used, Bing is rolling out kind of a pilot program now with a chat bot. So instead of a traditional SERP or search engine results page with 3 ads, 8 results, etc. It would just be a chat bot. So no, I would say, hey Bing, what are some good restaurants near me, or what is the best plumber near me in Des Moines, and it would spit out 1 answer instead of 10. And this is where SEM comes in, is because being there only 1 answer, eventually how is Bing or Google going to monetize that, right? So someone's going to have to pay to get their way up there to get that 1 result.
Yeah, and I don't think that. So voice, right, has been around for a while. This has all been on the way for a while, or because you had to say, Alexa, find me a restaurant, right? And Alexa finds you a restaurant. This AI has been living with us for a while. This is our first exposure to more elaborate interactions with it, and it's text-based, but it's not necessarily new.
No.
People are just having a good time with it.
Yeah, so. And I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's important to understand Microsoft's strategy behind that. So their strategy is to eat away at Google's market share, whether it be 1 or 2%. That is absolutely huge for Microsoft. I was listening to a podcast a while ago, and one guy who was a big-time SEO, SEM guy, he brought up a good point. He said Microsoft is willing to sacrifice Bing to eat away at Google's market share, and that's what they're doing with this ChatGPT. Bing is such a minuscule part of Microsoft's overall business that they know if they can attack Google's search revenue, which is about 70% of their overall revenue, it's going to benefit them in the long run. So just something to think about.
And competition's a good thing.
Yep.
We want competition like that so that everybody doesn't own one company that doesn't own everything. Like Google basically owns search. So other ways to siphon that off is a good thing.
Absolutely.
So what are some business models you think where SEM makes sense?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is lead generation, especially high-ticket lead generation. We work with a couple clients right now in high-ticket lead generation, essentially where the leads convert to high-dollar sales. So we work in one that's very specific, and we only get 10, 15 leads a month, but the ticket conversion there is between $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Basically, our cost to the company is paid off within the first quarter of the year every time.
Yep.
Because we only need to even with the leads that come in, even if only a couple of them convert, we've paid for ourselves. And that's why we like these higher margin clients, because the pressure on everybody is off and the competition for these keywords isn't that high. So if you're in a business-to-business industry where you're selling products or services to another business and you think, oh, nobody's searching for us, so we're not that exciting, this isn't Nike or something like that. No, you might actually be the best candidate for Google SEM because the search volume might not be that high. We'll just do an exact match search on the terms, and bam, suddenly all these jobs you didn't even know existed are coming into your door. This specific client that Ryan's referring to, we have jobs coming from all over the Midwest, and even farther out on the East Coast, work that they would otherwise not have here in local Des Moines, Iowa, that they're getting. And it's fun to watch it work, to be honest.
Yeah, and not just high-ticket lead generation too, but also just any lead gen company, really. I think of dermatology clinics. I think of chiropractors. Something to think about when you're running paid ads is it's not just the one direct sale and that's it. You have to think about lifetime value in all of this. I audited an account for a chiropractor once before, and when you're getting patients at an initial setup fee of $200 and then $40 or $50 per appointment, well, that one ad may have just cost you, let's say $5 or so. But factoring in lifetime value and ROI, that could be a 2, 3, 4, 500% ROI.
A 17% increase in sales for one of our clients, one of our smaller clients that is doing our minimum ad spend. That's what they saw. That's a fifth of their revenue increased in 1 year because of what we've done with the bare minimum for them. In fact, one of our clients, we've seen a 200% ROI essentially from the ads that we've ran from them because of how successful they are and the fact that they meet the right criteria of a niche audience and et cetera. But those are the kind of results that we are seeing with SEM for our clients, and we're excited about bringing that to as many companies that fit the right criteria as we possibly can, especially with Ryan's expertise in this field. It's insane what we can do once we get this stuff optimized.
Yeah, and a lot of what we found when we've audited existing clients that were at previous agencies or organizations is just the lack of upkeep and lack of care, right? So with big agencies, it's a numbers game. They're just trying to get as many clients as possible. Mm-hmm. Once you're in the door, you have your monthly meeting, that's that. They don't really care too much after that. Sometimes we're having weekly calls with our clients, bi-weekly calls with our clients. If something's wrong, I check the campaigns almost daily. If something's wrong, I'll give them a call and let them know. But we are manually and maintaining upkeep on all of our campaigns.
Custom designing the landing pages, whether we build out the landing page ourselves and we do the web development ourselves, or working with an existing company, getting after them so that they make it beautiful and optimized to actually convert as opposed to whatever they've been doing up until this point. Really getting after it so that we can get you the results that you need.
Yeah, and I'm addicted to seeing success of our clients. I mean, obviously that helps us in general too. But once a client that we work with starts seeing success, that motivates us a lot too, to get in the weeds and start looking for things that we might not have looked at before. But at the end of the day, we are there for our clients. We take care of our clients. We go in every day and look at the campaigns. And I can promise you, just from my experience in the marketing world, that most agencies, especially the bigger ones, are checking campaigns and accounts, maybe once a month.
They're liking that retainer billing, and that's about it. They're saying they're working 10 hours a week, but they're not.
Yep. And this can be easily checked through looking at the account edit history. And I've actually called out a few people that said they were doing stuff, and I looked at the edit history and there was nothing to be seen.
They're just getting it optimized and not checking it out. That's not how we roll. We like to win. We want to help you win. We want to help as many of the right fit. If you're the right fit for this particular service, we want to help you. And then from that, once we get this rolling, once we have really blown out the SEM game for you, there are so many other things that we can build around that when it comes to advertising that we can use from the starting point of the SEM campaign. And we specialize in that as well.
Absolutely. We also have fully transparent reporting too, to make sure that campaigns are moving in the right direction. If we're down a given month or a given week or two, we're going to make the adjustments right away. So having that fully automated and transparent reporting in SEM is huge.
So if you're interested in checking out our SEM services and want to get on the phone and talk with us a bit about how we can help you succeed in your business, please give us a call, fill out the form. We'll get a hold of you as soon as possible and begin to help you increase your revenue, generate leads, and get you where you want to be as a business.